All right, let's talk about one of the biggest, most famous mysteries of all time. We're going to dig into the extinction of the dinosaurs. And I promise you, this story is way more complicated and honestly way cooler than the one you probably learned in school.
So picture this, a giant asteroid, a single catastrophic day, and poof, all the dinosaurs are gone. That's a story we all know, right? But what if that's just the final page of a much, much longer book? What if that asteroid was just the final nail in a coffin that was already sealed?
See, to really get what happened at the end, we have to look at how life on Earth actually works. It's not this smooth, steady climb. It's more like a wild rhythm of incredible bursts of life, followed by massive extinctions that pretty much hit the reset button on the entire planet. And this timeline just lays it all out. The end of the dinosaurs, that KT extinction event, it's just the most recent in a whole series of major wipeouts over the last 500 million years. And you know what? It wasn't even the worst one. Not even close. That terrifying honor goes to the Permian extinction. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. 95%. Almost everything on the planet, gone. They call it the Great Dying for a reason. Life itself was pushed right to the very brink of being snuffed out completely. It's a pretty humbling reminder that mass extinction is just a part of our planet's cycle. It clears the board for something new to begin. And oh boy, did something new begin. After the dust settled from the Great Dying, a whole new world started to take shape. And from those ashes, a new group of animals rose up to become the absolute rulers of the planet. This was the dawn of the Age of Reptiles. You have to understand, the world back then was basically a paradise for giant creatures. The air was thick with oxygen, way more than we have today, which supercharged their bodies. You combine that with a hot greenhouse climate and endless food, and you've got the perfect recipe for growing enormous animals. The planet was practically custom-built for titans.
And they didn't just get by, they completely owned the place. For a stretch of time that's almost impossible for our brains to even comprehend, dinosaurs were at the top of every food chain in every corner of the globe. They must have seemed totally invincible, like they'd be here forever.
But of course, they weren't. And their end? Well, it wasn't some quick, clean event. It was a messy, drawn-out, and super complex puzzle that scientists are still trying to solve today. This mystery started brewing millions of years before that final dramatic day.
Yeah, we all know the Hollywood version. A giant rock from space smashes into the Yucatan Peninsula, throws up a huge dust cloud, blocks out the sun, and the dinosaurs starve. It's clean, it's dramatic, it's simple. But the rocks, the fossils themselves, they tell a much more tangled story. What if that asteroid wasn't the murder weapon? What if it was just the tombstone for a dynasty that was already dead and buried? The truth is, it was more like a death by 1,000 cuts. For millions of years, the dinosaurs' world was just falling apart around them. The continents were breaking up, trapping them. Sea levels were going haywire, messing with the climate. New land bridges meant new diseases could spread like wildfire. And as if that wasn't enough, you've got volcanoes in India just choking the atmosphere, and maybe even a cosmic event that plunged the planet into an ice age. It was just one thing after another, a relentless assault on their entire way of life. And this is the real kicker. This quote gets to the heart of the problem with the simple asteroid story. There's a huge, glaring anomaly in the fossil record. If the asteroid was the killer, you'd expect to find dinosaur fossils right up to the very moment of impact. But we don't. Seriously, think about that. A 2 million-year gap. A fossil-free zone for non-avian dinosaurs right before that asteroid layer. The evidence is pointing to something incredible. By the time that famous space rock showed up, the party was already over. It delivered a knockout blow to a planet that was already empty of its kings. So, with the giants gone, there was this massive power vacuum. For the first time in 150 million years, the world felt quiet. The stage was empty, and that set the scene for a whole new cast of characters to take their shot. And tucked away among those survivors was the small, kinda unassuming group of animals that lived in trees. Their biggest competitors were gone, their worst predators were gone. The extinction of the dinosaurs was the single greatest thing that ever happened to our own ancestors, the primates. And that's how this story, which started millions and millions of years ago with volcanoes and asteroids, lands right on our doorstep. The death of their world was the absolute prerequisite for the birth of ours. I mean, you can draw a perfectly straight line. Our earliest shrew-like ancestors were literally scurrying around under the feet of T-Rex. Then the extinction clears the board and lets mammals take over. Millions of years go by and boom, the human line splits off. And pretty soon you've got our bipedal ancestors like Australopithecus taking their very first steps. When you really boil it all down, the conclusion is kind of breathtaking. We are here because they are not. Our entire species, our cities, our art, our consciousness, it's all built on the rubble of the dinosaurs' world. We are, in a very real sense, the children of a planetary catastrophe. And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. The dinosaurs' end wasn't a single bad day. It was a slow, creeping series of environmental pressures that they just couldn't outrun. So when you look at our world today, it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What slow, creeping changes are defining our era? What will the fossil records say about us in 66 million years?